This video was brought to you by Squarespace. One is all it takes. Many things in the realm of video games can disappoint. Disappointment, unfortunately, abounds in this industry. It's just the way things go. But there's a special kind of disappointment one feels when hearing about an amazing game that never quite came to be. Sometimes games get canceled. Sometimes game ideas never go beyond the pitch stage and exist only as rough prototypes or in concept art. But whatever the case, hearing about the most amazing game, like the exact game that you want personally, the one that ticks all your boxes, and recognizing that you're only being exposed to the idea because it will absolutely never happen, well, it ain't fun, is it? It's like an anti-game reveal. At any given time, any secret project could be in development, but the moment a canceled project comes to light, it's like it poofs away in a cloud of dust, and all you get to have is the picture you hastily snapped when it appeared. You're getting proof of its non-existence, and now you know for certain that it will never happen. You can't even dream anymore. When discussing this topic, Retro Studios certainly comes to mind. Over the years, we've heard about all these cool projects they were either working on or pitched to Nintendo, including some really incredible Zelda-related games I have to try not to think about because it makes me sad. It's especially frustrating for a company like Nintendo because they're so protective of their IPs and often unwilling to experiment with side games and spin-offs, and when their employees have all these incredible ideas and nearly every one of them gets shot down, it's like, come on, just come on. You don't always need some gimmicky core idea. Sometimes it's okay to just make a thing because it would be cool, because it would expand the universe. But anyway, another unrealized Nintendo project has come to light, and this is one of those real ones. A game that was actually in development. And like so many of these unrealized projects, this one sounds so cool! As usual, Did You Know Gaming has the full scoop, and I highly recommend watching their whole video on the subject. It covers the story in great detail and also goes into Activision Blizzard and Vicarious Visions as companies. It's super good stuff. But here's the gist, and while there are little bits of conflicting information here and there, this is one of those cases where enough people have corroborated the existence of the project that we can be reasonably certain that it's real. Apparently, Did You Know Gaming had like a dozen different sources on this. So basically, in 2016, Vicarious Visions, owned by Activision Blizzard, had just finished work on Skylanders Superchargers. Nintendo loved the work they did incorporating DK and Bowser into the game. Both companies got to talking, and Activision Blizzard greenlit a collaborative project helmed primarily by Vicarious Visions. Apparently, the company erected walls within their office to create a super secret little chamber with a passcode and everything. It was here that a small, elite team worked on designing and prototyping a new 3D Donkey Kong game. Now let me just take a moment to say 3D DK game. And that's the thing. We already know how this story ends. It's like I said, that's the only reason we're talking about this, and that is Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the game. First though, the B-roll you're watching right now is not actually the real prototype, unfortunately. It's a fan prototype based on what we know about it, so just like Did You Know Gaming did in their video, we're using it here because how could we not? It's just like perfect B-roll. Hold the phone. A quick reminder that this video was brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace makes building your website super duper easy, and it requires no prior experience or any kind of coding knowledge or anything like that. Their site builder is super intuitive, super easy to use. You can even start with a template and just kind of mess around with it until you've got a website that looks amazing but is completely your own. My website, Arlo Recommends, is like a blog style site, so I can create a whole bunch of posts at once and schedule them to all go out at different times and even push automatic automatically to social media when they do. If your website needs more than that, Squarespace offers loads of powerful extensions, as well as a fantastic suite of analytics so you can keep track of how things are going. To try out Squarespace for yourself, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. Then when you're ready to launch, head to squarespace.com/Arlo to save 10% off your first website or domain. And now for today's recommendation, this video. My good buddy Xeon over on Nintendo Life carried his 3DS with him for an entire year and basically turned it into a big Street Pass documentary. It's a really good time, so go check it out. Thanks again to Squarespace. Now back to the video. The game was being developed under the codename Freedom. It would see DK roaming around a jungle-infested cityscape. Are you kidding me? That alone sounds like a dream come true to me. Overgrown city, that specific thing is my jam. Visually, I'm just so fascinated by both nature and architecture. Forests, plants, geology, all of that, but then human-made structures and interesting places. Marrying both worlds together, it's one of my very favorite themes in any media. But then even on top of that, you get the added bonus of post-apocalyptic lore suggestions. Why was this city abandoned? How long ago was it? It imbues a game with such an interesting vibe. It feels like there's such a big story waiting for you beneath the surface. It probably goes without saying that it's one reason Kirby and the Forgotten Land hit me so hard. And acknowledging that we nearly got a DK game like that is agonizing. In my mind, a modern 3D DK game is gorgeous. It leans into the natural aspect and delivers some lush and truly beautiful junglescapes. This sounds like it would have been exactly that, but with a whole different angle that I never would have even considered, or at least not expected from Nintendo. But now let's talk gameplay. It seems that the whole game would have been focused mainly on movement, zipping around, building momentum, using the environment to pull off cool moves. Vicarious Visions had experience with the Tony Hawk franchise, so they were eager to bring that to this project, which I hear that and I just go yes. Yes! Like it instantly makes so much sense. It's so easy to imagine what a game like that would have been like, and it's a perfect fit for DK. He doesn't just jump, he swings, he throws stuff, he's very kinetic. Bringing a Tony Hawk mindset to the DK world, it's a match made in heaven. And actually, one major mechanic would be grinding on vines. Again, you can see it so clearly. You can see this overgrown cityscape completely covered in vines and power lines and such. And you're really learning the movement system and you're cruising around all over the place. It sounds like a thrill. It sounds like one of those games you can play forever because it just feels so good. Even just what we've got right here is a heck of a pitch. 3D DK, overgrown city, grinding on vines and swinging around, momentum-based gameplay. Bring that to President Arlo, and that is an instant green light. That sounds like a dream of a DK game. It sounds like everything I could want, and it sounds like it would appeal to a pretty wide audience as well. That just sounds like a genuinely good game all around. Further details, though, are unfortunately scant. According to some people, Pauline would have been featured prominently, possibly even as a playable character. Must say, that also sounds really cool. This was before Super Mario Odyssey, so I don't know if this would have been their own interpretation of the character, or if they collaborated with Nintendo on the idea, because this project was in production only the year before Odyssey came out. They might have known that Nintendo was bringing the character back very soon, and this would have been kind of related to that. Whatever the case, though, I am fascinated by the idea of Pauline being playable. I don't know what her gameplay would be like, or if it would mostly be a story thing or what, but what an interesting angle for a modern DK game. Those are all the important details. That's a snapshot of what Project Freedom might have turned out to be. And I don't know about you, but I think it sounds incredible, in case I have not made that clear yet. The funny thing is, I'm not even the biggest DK fan in the world or anything. I certainly would not count myself among the fandom. But like, come on, who doesn't love DK? I've spent many hours with the excellent Donkey Kong Country games, both original and modern. Tropical Freeze is still the best 2D platformer I have ever played. So I do like the character, but more than anything, I just think DK has so much potential. Nintendo has got their little list of IPs that still need to go 3D. For a long time, it was Yoshi, Kirby, and DK. Obviously, DK did get a 3D game once, but it was a super long time ago, and the result was pretty divisive. He's well overdue for another. And now that Kirby has finally gotten his 3D game, and it's incredible, I might add, I'm looking at DK. Especially with the indie scene drumming up new interest in 3D platformers, and with the latest graphical tech, I could see a big AAA DK game making a big splash. Especially if it's got more of an open adventure format with large explorable environments. Sign me up right now. And it's this potential that makes the sad reality we preside in all the more difficult to accept. Project Freedom was in development for about 6 months in 2016. And frustratingly enough, it wasn't even Nintendo who pulled the plug. It seems that they were totally on board. So who could possibly think to interfere with a project this cool? Oh wait, who did you say Vicarious Visions was owned by? Oh, right. Apparently at the time, Vicarious Visions was also developing an ambitious new open-world Skylanders game, which would have been a bold new direction for the series. But when sales of the games and toys started to decline, Activision Blizzard did what you would expect. They pulled the plug on everything, and they pivoted hard. They canceled the new Skylanders and Project Freedom, and also announced that they were moving away from single-player games almost entirely. This was when the whole live service multiplayer thing was really starting to take off, and that was where they wanted to be. And I think there was probably a point in history when Activision Blizzard would have thought working with a well-established Nintendo IP was a great business decision. Too good an opportunity to pass up. But 2016, the tail end of the long, dark night of the Nintendo soul that was the Wii U era, was not that time. So that was that. This big, crazy 3D DK game went up in a puff of smoke, and now we are lucky that we've got this little snapshot. And interestingly enough, the cancellation was something of a turning point. Vicarious Visions was founded by the Bala brothers, two guys who are clearly passionate about making games. They obviously were not too happy under the rule of these particular corporate overlords. Activision Blizzard, only interested in cynically chasing massive profits, was already making it really hard to make genuinely good games. They already wanted to turn Vicarious Visions into nothing more than a Call of Duty support studio, which is something they are doing to their smaller studios even to this day. With all these cancellations and with employee morale at an all-time low, the two brothers finally left the studio they founded all those years ago. They immediately formed a new studio, Valan, and poached much of the talent from Vicarious Visions, which is awesome. And that was the end of this story. Or was it? Of course, we do have to wonder. Is there any chance at all that Project Freedom could live on in some form? It's technically possible. If Nintendo thought it was a good idea, they might have tried to salvage it. Maybe they're working on a DK game right now with a lot of the same elements. But just as likely, or probably even more likely, I'll admit, it really did disappear in a puff of smoke. Nintendo is funny. If I were in their position and I thought a specific idea was a really good one, and the deal I had with the studio working on it fell through, I'd find another studio. But Nintendo likes to act more organically. If projects materialize, then they materialize. And if they don't, then the company doesn't like to force anything. And considering Project Freedom would have been influenced by Vicarious Visions' experience with Tony Hawk, maybe Nintendo did make the right choice here. Maybe forcing it and expecting some other studio to whip up the same magic potion of concepts and inspirations would have been a bad idea. I don't know. At the same time, the guys who formed Vicarious Visions are independent now. Nothing's stopping Nintendo from working directly with Valan. If the idea was good once, it's still good now, right? If those developers were willing to make this game and Nintendo was on board to help, could it be that the same is still true? It's been 8 years since then, but maybe the cancellation simply delayed the whole process, but it's in the works right now? Of course, there's also the chance that all this information getting out itself makes the project less likely than ever. Nintendo might not want to work on an idea that's essentially already been revealed. Unless it was already close to completion by the time all this came out, on that front, I suppose all we can do is guess. I do think Nintendo is working on a new DK game, and I think it's probably coming soon. I'm not getting my hopes up for anything 3D, unfortunately, but could some small element of freedom have survived? Tucked safely away in someone's pocket, waiting for its big chance? Maybe not. But if the next game features DK grinding on vines with bananas on his feet, I will not be surprised. It's all very sad. A movement-based 3D DK set in an overgrown... A movement-based 3D DK set in an overgrown city? Come on! Just come on. Next you'll tell me FromSoft was working on a Kirby title, but they couldn't agree with Nintendo about how many swamps to put in the game, so they shut it down.